if you can, that you have been a slave all your life. You have not been free since the day you were born. And then you finally get the news, not only that you're free, but that you've been free for 2.5 years. How would you feel? Today, we dive deep into the story of Juneteenth, a pivotal moment in American history that many of us are just beginning to understand.
Join us as we explore the significance of Juneteenth, not just as a historical event in Black history, but as a powerful testament to the resilience of faith, family, and mental challenges, and also strengths of those who endured slavery and the generations that followed.
I'm Naty.
I'm Veda.
And we are here to thrive.
Today, we're celebrating Juneteenth. See our t-shirts?
Yay.
Our t-shirts say, we're Black, but on Juneteenth, we're blacker than black. Okay, yes. Now today we are celebrating because there's a big reason to celebrate. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into the difference of Juneteenth and July 4th.
Yes.
Hello.
Well, I think the main one is the freedom of people versus the freedom of a nation will be the biggest one there. But here's what happened. On June 19th, 1865, the Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce that the Civil War was over and that all the enslaved people were now free. The issue is, the news came 2 years after President Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Can you imagine what the delay of that news carried in the lives and mental health of those that had been enslaved? For you to know that you were actually free, for you to know that all the suffering that you were going through, it didn't really end, but it was different once people were free, and it could have started for them to build their own lives. 2 years prior, talk about anger, anxiety, depression,
yes,
all kinds of stuff.
Yes, and yes. This delay in the news reaching Texas meant that countless men, women, and children continued to live in bondage as slaves under their masters unnecessarily.
Yep.
This had profound effects, not only on their physical lives, but especially on their mental and emotional well-being. Mm-hmm. That's a hit and a half for your mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad enough you're a slave. Mm-hmm. You don't get paid. Mm-hmm. You get abused. Mm-hmm. You get raped. You get beat up. Mm-hmm. Okay? You get sold. Families are torn apart.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden one day some men come in on some horses and say, oh,
you've been free for 2.5 years.
You've been free for 2.5 years because President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863.
Yep.
And because they couldn't read.
Right.
There was no radio.
Right.
No internet, no cell phones. Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get the news.
And then the master,
he was not going to give him the news.
Massa,
they were not going to give him the news.
Wasn't going to volunteer. Mm-mm. You know why? Because they wanted their crop,
right?
Planted.
Yes.
For the fall.
Not only fall. Well, it was 2 years, so it was fall, winter, summer,
a couple.
Right.
They wanted to keep getting their crop
for free.
Yeah. Okay? They're stupid. They're ignorant. They'll never find out, hey, I'm going to milk this as long as I can.
And that's what they did.
Yes, they did.
Well, I would say one of the positive things, not that there's anything positive about slavery, let me say that. But one of the positive things that played a crucial role during this time was the faith for that many enslaved individuals have. That's where they found their strength and their hope. It provided a sense of community, a belief in a better future. And it was actually their mental health. That's the only place they had to go. Releasing their burdens unto the Lord and, you know, surviving together. I was reading something about, how people say, well, that's not a positive thing because they had to. Well, it's true. It's not, it's easier to have a choice to do something than not. But if they wouldn't have had their faith, I think it would have been a terrible situation where they wouldn't have anything to give them hope that anything was possible for their situation to change.
Yeah. See, if they didn't have their faith, it would have been more terrible than they were already in.
Right.
Okay? It'd be worse. If you have no hope to hold on to, what's the reason for living?
Right.
What's the reason for raising your children? What's the reason for getting married? What's the reason for having a home? What's the reason?
Right.
If you don't have any hope
right.
to hold on to. And then their faith. Guess what? They only had 2 outfits. One for the field
and one for church.
And one for church. And I do believe that that's the reason why our Black churches, Black Baptist churches, the traditional churches, they're still stuck on us dressing from head to toe.
It's a cultural thing at this point.
Because back then, it is a cultural thing. That's all we had. The day that they went to church, the only one who could read mostly was the preacher.
That's what I was going to bring up. And I think when we talk about faith and you're talking about culture and customs, I think that's part of why people have this relationship with their pastors, almost like if they're God and they put them in a pedestal. And it comes from that environment, because at that point, only the pastors could read. So if they needed anything read, they would have to go to the pastor. Their faith depended on how their pastors interpret or read the word to them. So, they had it took a long time until some learned to read and they could read the scripture by themselves and stuff like that. And I think some of the lingering things that we have from that time is that, like you said, putting this pastor in a pedestal and putting him in a God place, that when those pastors end up being men,
when they fall off that pedestal,
it hurts
hard.
What
it affects us so much. Put not your trust in man.
Right.
Put
Correct.
your trust in God.
Right.
That's what the Bible says.
Right. But the issue was that at that time, even though you were maybe putting your trust in God, the only person who could give you the word of God was the pastor.
That's right. Your saving grace.
That was just, yes.
That's what it was.
Right.
Your saving grace. One significant practice was the creation of hush harbors, secret meeting places where enslaved people would gather to worship away from the watchful eyes of their enslavers. These gatherings were filled with singing, praying, preaching, and providing a vital sense of solidarity and spiritual renewal. When you've been beat down all day long,
absolutely,
you got to go and connect to the spirit so that you can get up tomorrow and do it all over again. There's got to be a spiritual connection.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I don't sing, but please, I won't do that to anybody, but you can. And another practice was the use of spirituals. I love spirituals. Songs that express deep yearning for freedom and faith in divine justice. These songs were often coded with messages of hope and resistance. Songs like Swing Low.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
And I really want you to sing this one, Wade in the Water.
Way in the water.
Yes.
Way in the water, children. Way in the water. God's gonna trouble the.
And the thing about those songs were not only a means for worship and finding hope, it was also code for escape plans.
Yes. Yes.
So that was so clever.
Our people were considered ingrates, lower than a dog.
Yes. Some people still think that.
Some people still think that. But they
Sadly.
didn't realize that God put something in us that books and being able to read, they didn't need. They had the Spirit of the Lord.
Here's the thing that people don't understand. Being smart doesn't mean education. Education adds tools to the belt, but being smart doesn't mean being educated. There's a lot of educated fools, and there's a lot of people who have no formal education who are very smart,
wise, and wisdom.
Correct.
Correct. You can't go to school for wisdom.
Oh no. Like I said, you can be an educated.
When I was in school, wisdom was not one of my classes. Was it one of yours?
No,
it was not.
No,
it was not. Wisdom.
Well, and I can tell you, I'm remembering at one point I was supervising a team of people, and the person with the most degrees about among my employees, and she even had at the time way more degrees than I had, was the slowest one to understand the training. So, yeah, education doesn't equal intelligence. That's
there are a lot of educated people that struggle with the simplest things.
Yes, absolutely.
They struggle with the simplest instructions or the simplest duty that they need to do.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said,
but they have all these degrees.
Yeah, education gives you tools and resources. Education doesn't make you smart.
Education increases what's already in you.
Correct.
And it grows it.
Correct.
And you get information, correct information about how to use it, what it's about, how it's going to help, how it's going to hurt. Storytelling. Storytelling played a crucial role. Enslaved people would pass down stories of biblical figures like Moses, who led his people to freedom. Do we know of Moses in slavery? Yes, we do.
Several.
Drawing parallels to their hope for liberation. These stories reinforced their faith and provided a powerful narrative of resistance and resilience.
In terms of mental health, and I was trying to do some research, and there's not a lot documented, which I'm not surprised. This was 1800s. In 2024, we have a lot of information, but there's still a lot of stigma. So I wouldn't be surprised the fact that since slaves were not even considered people, they would even document any mental health information. But you have to think about the trauma of enslavement, the physical abuse. Think about how we deal in the modern era with physical abuse. And think about, this was your life from the moment you woke up to the moment you went to sleep, and the only reprieve was the couple of hours you were at church on Sunday. um the family separation, where, like you were saying at the beginning, they sell this son to this other family, and they put this daughter in the main house, and all that information, the constant dehumanization, the way they were treated, it took a toll. It took a toll. And but despite this, they exhibited remarkable resilience, often using community bonds and collective coping mechanisms like the singing of the spiritual and telling stories, and the fact that they were having a community to be able to survive. It's like when somebody's been kidnapped, and we talk about Stockholm syndrome. That's not the ideal situation. But if you have 5 people, 10 people that are being kidnapped, they try to bond together to survive. And that's what they had to do.
And it's really terrible when they sell the father, or they sell the mother, or they sell the children.
Absolutely.
Not knowing if or when you would ever see each other again. And many of them didn't see each other again. Yeah. They never saw each other again. This touches me because I didn't really learn about slavery in school. I went to all white school.
Okay.
I knew of
slavery.
I really just learned about Juneteenth in the last 20 years. And that's because my pastor was from Texas. So he told us about Juneteenth.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I grew up in Puerto Rico. So the slavery I knew about was the slavery of the native Puerto Ricans and the slaves that were there. Juneteenth was not something for us because our our days and dates of freedom, or and were we ever free in a way? Yeah, we were not slaves, but as a nation, we're still not free because we were a part of Spain, who then sold us to the United States. We are still, we're not, there's not slavery, like, working for free and being beaten.
But there's still poor.
Yeah. Well, because we are U.S. citizens, we have kind of some of the same benefits, but we are looked as less just because we're a Latin American country, even though we're not a country, we're a Commonwealth. So I'm learning about Juneteenth now. I knew about slavery from that standpoint, but I'm learning so much, not only about slavery, but about African American history since I moved to the States. And it's amazing all the things I am learning. And having a child who's Black, I want him to know his background. I want him to know where he comes from. And this, once I started getting closer to you and your family, and I started learning more about African American, not only history, but about all the abuse that still exists, and all the discrimination, and all the things that happen still in 2024 to African Americans. Remember, the story when Mason was a baby. I can't remember who it was because they kill African Americans all the time. But there was one of these unfortunately and unfair and unjust killings of tragic of an African American man. And I remember I was watching the TV.
And you started crying.
Oh, I bawled.
She was Balling.
I bawled because I was like, Jesus, I have a black baby in my hands that will become a black child, and then a black teenager,
and then a black
and then a black man. That even if I bust myself raising him in the best ways I can, somebody can say he did the wrong thing or suspect that he did the wrong thing, and I may get a call that my baby's not coming home. And that was the most heartbreaking thing for me. I want him to be proud of his heritage and of his roots, and I want him to know his story. But as a parent, I've been starting to look at the other aspects of being an African American in the United States, and it's heartbreaking.
And not only are you Puerto Rican, but you're also black.
Oh, Puerto Ricans are a mixture of black, Taino, which is the kind of Indian that we are, and white, which were the Spaniards at that time.
But Mama, your mother,
yes,
you see her hair?
Yeah, I have very curly hair for those that are not looking. Yeah.
Her mother had my hair.
Yes.
I had to perm her hair.
Yeah, the only reason my hair is a little longer and stretchy is my dad. My dad, also Puerto Rican, but he was on the lighter side because we have Puerto Ricans that can be blonde, blue-eyed to completely black and afro, curly, very curly, coarse hair. So my mom, everybody thought that my mom was her mom.
Yes.
Until she opened her mouth and the Hispanic accent came out. Yeah.
Hola.
Yeah. We, just like I don't sing, you can't do Spanish. We know that.
Okay.
Back to the...
As we go on.
Right.
Look here. The announcement of their freedom was met with mixture of joy and confusion. Let me stop right there. I can hear young people today going, if it was me, I would have this. If it was me, I would have that. No, you wouldn't. Because when you have been enslaved for so long and that's all you know.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you're being told you can go anywhere you want to go.
But where is that?
Where am I supposed to go?
Right. I don't have a house that I own, or I don't have money.
Do I go? I go to the next plantation.
Right.
Okay. Where do you go?
Right.
So you got people grabbing their stuff and they gone already. And then you got some people going, I can't leave.
Right.
I can't. See, that's what happens.
Yeah.
When you beat down a person's self-esteem, their intelligence, their their well-being and their existence. When you take a person's existence and you tear it down like you tearing wallpaper off a wall, just tear it down, and then you hear, we're free. What do I do?
Well, and it was not like they could go and, like you said, where would they go the next plantation? It was not like they could go ahead and apply to any job they wanted, because the fact that they were free didn't mean that they were treated like equals.
The fact that they were free was basically on paper.
Basically.
Now, see, the other states freed the slaves, but the southern states were very reluctant. They're the ones that wanted to keep us enslaved.
This was in Texas. Yes. South. That's when it took 2 years to come down and
It's considered still the South.
Oh, yeah, Texas is
okay.
Absolutely.
Many faced uncertainty of their future, lacking resources and support system. You have no money. How you gonna go catch train?
Right. Well, they were not,
so to speak.
Oh. But even the transportation that was available, you don't have any money. How are you gonna buy a horse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only transportation they had was left and right.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at that. I had a friend who would say "Iki Miki Sock and Shoe." Yeah, that's all you had.
The transition from slavery. A person has never been enslaved, or a lot of people can't even fathom this. But transition from slavery to freedom was challenging,
to say the least.
okay? That messed with your mind. Marked by the economic hardships. You had nothing.
Right.
Okay? You didn't own nothing.
Right.
And probably everything you own, you could wrap it in something and carry it. Okay?
But remember, you were living in Massa's house.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're free, where are you going to go? Because you don't have a house. Your parents don't have a house. Because everybody's in kind of the same field in terms of where they are financially. So, and like I said, it's not like you could go and get any job.
Right.
Because they were not treated the same way as white people.
And even though this law was on paper for everyone did not follow the law. There were still people that wanted to keep our people enslaved.
Absolutely.
They were mad because our people were declared free.
Well, and they were not paid just salaries either. Now they might have been free, but they were kept in poverty because, okay, I have to pay you now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to pay you a fair wage. It's amazing. It's amazing human nature because, you know, we talk a lot about the United States being a nation of faith. And if we look back into history, and you were talking about how you're going to mention the difference between Juneteenth and the 4th of July, but the reality of the United States, it was people coming for religious freedom. They wanted a new life. They didn't want the religion of the king. They wanted to have freedom of religion. One of the big mistakes is that they say that our founding fathers were Christians or religious, and most of them were not, which is why they put in the Constitution that the freedom of religion, because they actually wanted people to be able to have religion or not have religion. So there's a lot of misconceptions about that. But my point is, as Christians, if we think about most faith, within Christianity, because if I'm not mistaken, well, the Anglican Church is what rules in England, which is what I would think was at the time. I'm not a historian, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. And yeah, I'm not a historian at all. But my point is,
I think it was Anglo-Saxon.
I think that's a different thing.
Okay, then it's Anglican.
Yeah, because I think Anglo-Saxon is a language, not a religion.
Okay, that's another.
I don't know. Yeah, but you might be right and I may be wrong. We will have to look into that.
Yeah.
But my point was, even the Anglican Church is under Christianity, if I'm not mistaken, and never and there were slaves in the Bible and stuff, but once Jesus came to the picture, how we as humans, and talking about humanity, how can you treat someone like less than?
Right.
When the word says there was not going to be no female, no male, no Gentile, no Jew, no free or slave, that we were all the same in the eyes of God. How people who, and still to this day, people who say that they love Jesus, that they follow God's teaching, can show so much disdain and hate for another human being. That is something that blows my mind.
God didn't tell a certain culture of people to love or to hate.
Right.
Okay? He wanted all of us love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
First, love God with all your, everything you got, your heart, your mind, your soul, everything. Love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, except for them. No, that's not God's word. But we do have a tendency, and I don't mean as Black people, but as people, period.
That's what I say, it's
to
human
turn
nature.
things so that you can sleep at night.
Cherry pick.
Okay, and you justify it for yourself. But I remember in history, Frederick Douglass spoke at a 4th of July. And Frederick Douglass, he was a great orator. Frederick Douglass said, "This is not my people's Independence Day because we're still enslaved. This is your Independence Day. And now we have our Independence Day, which is Juneteenth, and was put into law
very recent
by the President of the United States, Joe Biden, Mr. President,
the current president,
that Juneteenth is now a federal holiday. Yep. I've been celebrating 4th of July all my life because that's all I knew. That's all we knew. 4th of July, get us an outfit, you know, mama give us a bath in the afternoon and put on our 4th of July little shorts, little halter top, and we go visit people and they have barbecues and stuff like that.
Well, hear me out. In Puerto Rico, place that is not either a country or a state, we celebrate 4th of July. And with the barbecues or, you know, I don't know about special outfits, but we did. But they parades and stuff like that. That was my
mama's thing.
Yeah, and right. And parades and stuff. And we are not even a state or a country or anything. We are a commonwealth, which is an in-between.
Yeah. Well, I've embraced Juneteenth.
Oh, I have joined that celebration.
Because my people, I don't care how light you are. I don't care how light your eyes are. I don't care how pretty your hair is. Do you remember back in the day, if you had 1 iota, 1/10 of black blood in you, they called you black. But there were a lot of us that were so fair-skinned that we were able to pass for white or Caucasian. Lena Horne, singing in the Cotton Club. Lena Horne looked white, except when she opened her mouth and she sang. Hey, you choose. We just got another option. You want to celebrate 4th of July? Celebrate 4th of July. You're not going to hell for celebrating 4th of July. But knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And when you learn, you get to grow. So now that we've learned about Juneteenth and the meaning of it and why it's so special to our people, now I can celebrate Juneteenth.
Or you can celebrate both.
You can celebrate both if you want to, but I know from now on.
Oh, yeah. We celebrate Juneteenth.
We celebrate Juneteenth. And we wear our shirts.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. And these shirts are not to intimidate anybody.
Oh, God, no.
They're not for intimidation. What they're doing is expressing how we feel. Now we know Juneteenth, the last of the slaves were freed, were told.
Were notified.
They were notified that they were free.
Yeah.
Okay? Because we still had masters who enforced slavery, even though it was illegal.
Right.
No slaves, no servitude, unless a person committed a crime, and that was the only reason. But it didn't go quite that easy. But it's good to learn, it's good to know, and it's good that when you know better, you do better. and you grow.
So, as we reflect of everything we're learning about Juneteenth, let's honor the strength of those who endure slavery and recognize the ongoing impact of this history on the present day. It's a powerful symbol of both the progress made and the work still needed to achieve true equality.
And we encourage you to celebrate Juneteenth by learning more about its history and its significance. Educate yourselves and others, participate in local events, and support Black owned businesses and organizations. Let's continue to strive for a future where freedom, healing, and justice are realities for everyone.
And for our audience that will not listen to us on Juneteenth, that might hear us a little later, still, the learning is not for this day in particular.
Just this day, no.
Learning is an ongoing process, and learning is a daily gift.
Mm-hmm.
So, still support, still read, still learn more about not only this particular holiday, but about the history behind it.
As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Also, remember that if you're in a life crisis, please call 988. Or if your loved one is in a crisis, call 911.
Or if your mind is telling you to commit suicide, call 988 so you can talk to someone. Because I've learned over the years that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. My grandma used to always say, this too shall pass. Okay? Trouble don't last always. All right?
Thank you for joining us on this special episode of Thrive by the Rising Muse. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and don't forget to thrive. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Happy Juneteenth. Bye-bye.